Dear friends, I've got some news for you. I've got some good news and an invitation. The good news is that restrictions are easing, we think. We think that come July the 1st, the limit that's been in place on churches of a 50 size will go. There'll still be a limit on the size, but it'll be much larger, which is great news for us. Now, that could all change. You appreciate the context we're in. Who knows what's going to happen with those Victorians and what might happen in New South Wales. But God willing, we think that come July, the restrictions easing means that we can resurrect church. Now, I use that word deliberately because starting church up again is not going to be easy. It might seem like it should be. You know, surely we just open the doors and people come in. Well, it's not as simple as that for a bunch of reasons. The first of which is, if you can see behind me, you'll see that we've turned the building into a production studio, and that's been necessary to make streaming happen, and all the teams have had to swing in to work in that area. And to change all of that's not an easy thing to do, and we are so grateful to God for the work that they've done, and we want to keep that stream going. We expect that a bunch of people, for health reasons and other good reasons, won't be able to get back to church straight away. So we want to keep the streaming going, which means to have people in here at the same time, it's complex. But there'll also be hygiene issues we need to pay attention to. There'll be social distancing that needs to be adhered to. People will need to book in. Morning's even more complex because we've got the kids ministry that has stricter issues around hygiene. We want to make sure we look after the kids. There's space issues in the morning with the main hall and the COVID centre. Just to say, there's lots of reasons that make restarting church complex, and so it is a resurrection. But we want to do it. As I'm sure you feel too, the church in God's purposes is so important, and it matters so much that we get back together. We're determined to take some steps to get us back together as soon as we can. Now, to do that, it's going to be a big deal. It's going to take a whole lot of work, of new teams, new people, new work. And for us, the way we're conceiving of it is effectively we're starting a church again. This is a church plant, if you like. Now, I know many of you have wished to have been part of a church plant. This is your chance. But with starting a church, one of the best ways to think about starting a church is to get a group of people who are bought into making it work, a launch team. And so we're thinking of, as we restart church, resurrect church, that if we could get together a whole bunch of you for morning and for night and think together as being a relaunch team, then with all the challenges, we think we can make it work really well. What we need is a group of people who aren't just keen to come back together because they've missed something, but a group of people who are keen to come back together because we've missed something and who want to make it work for others, who are determined to come with a heart of service and a determination to be committed to making it work. Now, there's a bunch of things that would mean doing. It means being positive in the midst of all the challenges. Just to give you a sense of this, as we do come back, we won't be able to do church quite like we did for some time. We won't be able to sing. People will have to sit at a distance from each other. Mingling will be a challenge. We'll have kids' challenges in the morning. So church won't, and there'll be streaming happening on at the same time. So it won't quite be like it was, and that could be a recipe for despair. It feels a little bit like, we're wondering that it might feel a little bit like Israel coming back from exile to Jerusalem with all the anticipation of getting back to the temple, only to find that it was a pale shadow of what it once was. And so people were in tears, not of joy, but of despair. And that could be our journey for the next 3-4 months. And we need a group of you who get that, who say, I understand it's not going to be easy, but I'm convinced that God's purpose is to gather His people, and that's so precious and wonderful. We'll do it even with the challenges it brings. And so that's the invite, to be part of that group. You don't have to be anything special. You just have to be someone who loves the Lord, who loves His church, and who wants to see it work, who's prepared to Commit to being here as often as we need you to be here, whether that's every week, apart from sickness or something, or fortnightly if we have to roster because of limitations. But we want people to join up and say, I want to be in this team, I want to make church work, so that not only does it work for us, but it works for those that have been watching the stream for the last 3 months, have begun to explore the things of Christ and want to come to church. If we can make this work well, then they can come back in and find a group of people who will introduce them to Jesus well. A relaunch team. So, could you be part of this? We want a large team in the morning, large team at night. We're thinking 200 in the morning, 100 at night. That's a lot of people. Young, old, young parents, older people, men, women, everybody in both these groups. And again, as I say, you just need to be someone who loves the Lord, who wants to see his church go forward, and want to be part of a group to make all of that work. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly will it involve? We'll have meetings in the next few weeks, month, to invite you to come along and find out more about it. So at this stage, keep your ears open to that news. And look, it'd be wonderful if all of you wanted to be part of this. We're just conscious that people are in different contexts and circumstances. It might not work easily for everybody. But if we can have a large group who have really captured God's vision, who are keen to make all of this work, then we can do it, whatever the challenges. We'll be able to make this work under God by his grace and see his people gathered together again, sharing the great news of Jesus to whoever comes and stirring and encouraging each other to follow Christ. Wouldn't that be a wonderful outcome to see through this period? That we actually come out of all of this in 12 months' time stronger as a church. And that's our great hope. So keep your ears tuned. More information coming. Relaunch team. Be part of it as we try and restart church.